pirates, opium, and good neighbors. How Solovyov justifies the current war by rewriting the history of Britain and Europe. Europe is dead. How Solovyov constructs the image of a hostile and degrading West. This segment from An Evening with Solovyov presents a distillation of the current Kremlin propaganda line. Europe is presented as simultaneously stupid, corrupt, dependent on the US, and dangerous. The US is portrayed as a pragmatic player, tired of European ballast and rethinking its strategy. 1. Personal discrediting instead of discussion. The segment begins with a crude, demonstratively sexist and ageist attack on two female politicians, Kaja Kallas and Christiane Amanpour. Solovyov calls them disgusting old women and senile fools, declaring that, as an old man, he has the right to speak like this. This isn't random rudeness, but a deliberate technique to deflect a political dispute into personal insults, to depersonalize and humiliate European leaders, especially women, by portraying them as incompetent hysterics. It's important for European readers to understand Russian state television is systematically absolving the audience of the responsibility to understand the arguments. Instead of analyzing the content of the American document and Kallas's position, they offer a simple explanation. She can't even read. And so it's no coincidence that we're suddenly hearing phrases like Ali Smith writing that the European Union is the Fourth Reich, to which Elon Musk replies, yes, for the most part. And Elon Musk seriously believes that the European Union should be abolished. But this is also stated in the US national strategy, which explicitly states that the EU is destroying nation-states. And now it's clear why Rubio, whom Trump called the greatest, who has the potential to become the greatest Secretary of State in US history, like Sculptor, doesn't want to meet with EU representatives. In this case, with Kallas. This is very, very serious. Against this backdrop, all attempts to destabilize Russian-Indian relations have failed. The attempt to isolate Russia has failed. The attempt to impose its vision of the Ukrainian conflict on the Americans has failed. The strategy states that Europe's understanding of how the conflict is unfolding is completely illusory, using almost the same words. In other words, they don't even understand what they're saying. 2. American strategy as a convenient tool. The central element of the bloc is a discussion of a certain US document on Europe and the world. Solovyov highlights several points from it. The US allegedly admits the failure of the regime change policy, mentioning '93 coup, concludes that it is no longer interested in color revolutions, does not view Russia as an enemy and Europe as a problem and a rival. The text of the document itself, of course, is not shown to the viewer or quoted in full. Instead, it is used as universal proof that the Orange Revolutions and the Ukrainian Maidan have been recognized as mistakes, that Washington is ceasing to support the European project, that Russia is returning to the status of a legitimate partner in strategic security. This paints a picture. The US is rethinking its past policy, is ready for regional solutions without regime change, and therefore may recognize Russia's right to a sphere of influence, including Ukraine. 3. Europe as an enemy and a Fourth Reich. Solovyov then constructs an image of the European Union as a historically exhausted and hostile entity. The EU is called a Fourth Reich, a reference to Western journalism. It is claimed that American strategy directly views the EU as an enemy. The thesis that the European Union destroys nation-states and must be eliminated is repeated. Here, Elon Musk is invoked as a symbol of healthy Western skepticism. This construct serves several purposes at once. 1. To divide the West into useful America and rotten Europe. The US is supposedly ready for pragmatic dialogue with Moscow, while Europe is obstructing and sabotaging. 2. To legitimize Russia's refusal to perceive the EU as a serious partner. If the EU is a nobody, Brussels' opinion can be ignored. 3. To prepare the Russian public for a possible US-Russia deal over the heads of Europeans. If the EU is a destructive and unnecessary Fourth Reich, then bypassing it is almost a moral obligation. 4. Freedom of speech and corruption, a counterattack on Europe's weak spots. A separate section is devoted to freedom of speech and corruption in the EU. Solovyov relishes quoting an episode of Ursula von der Leyen's speech in Finland, where a protester is detained by police while she speaks about democracy and freedom of expression. This is presented as a graphic exposé of European hypocrisy. Then follows a long passage about corruption scandals in the European Commission and the European Parliament, searches, arrests, bribery and money laundering cases. The logic is simple. Since you keep talking about corrupt Ukraine and corrupt Russia, we'll show that Brussels itself is riddled with corruption and has no moral right to teach anyone lessons. Think, analyze, draw conclusions, and don't be fooled. This was the program Empire of Lies.